Welcome to the Calder Farmstead, your place for news, analysis, and shenanigans from the American Hockey League.
Face off one by Calder, Jones, top, other point, Benson into the slot, a shot is gone! Josh Perry, in double,
left point, long drive, Shane running, what a stop by Matisse with the left pad! Oh, there was a scramble in front of the net, and denied was Matt Schichter by a miraculous piece of net binding by Matisse Kinetic.
Later from the red line sends it in. Hofer into his net. He stops it. Hofer looking. Hofer firing toward the empty net. He scores! Are you kidding me? Joel Hofer, a goalie goal in the Calder Cup playoffs.
And now, with 9 minutes gone in overtime, the Bears breaking out. Right side with Fair. Brooks Light cutting to the net. Fair, and let's go! He scored! He scored! It's over!
Hello, hello, hello from Winnetka, Illinois.
And just down the road in Chicago, Illinois.
Yeah, we should probably hang out then. Welcome to the Calder Farmstead Podcast, episode number 126 for Friday, January 27th, 2023. Sorry that we're a day late. You know, I just felt lazy. If you were hoping for a podcast featuring tips on building poultry tractors, we're not going to be much help. This is an American Hockey League podcast, and my name is Sean O'Brien from Stats Track and the AHL's only league-wide analytics guy.
And I'm Sarah Avampato from Full Press Hockey and SB Nation's Kings Country.
And as always, we thank you for tuning in with us. And if you're new to hearing Sarah and I talk about hockey, we're going to talk about some news around the AHL, as well as dive in and discuss the goings-on of 8 teams around the AHL. Both watch a lot of games and are going to talk about what we see when we watch the film, as well as use some advanced stats to help us break it down. If that's new to you, you might want to head over to our podcast feed or YouTube channel, wherever you're listening to us from, and check out episode 0. It's a short primer on some of the stats we're going to be talking about, as well as how we view what's important on the ice. So if you're new to some of the more advanced hockey stats terms like PDO or the point shares model, or newer hockey terms like controlled zone entries or Royal Road, go check that out, so you better be able to pick up what we're putting down. I promise it's not that nerdy or technical. It's only 20 minutes. And let's be honest, you wasted 20 minutes believing the Dallas Cowboys were, in fact, dem boys. You'll never get that time back. So next time, why not spend a little more time with us talking hockey? We do have some news around the league to talk about. Every once in a while, we'll get a newsy kind of week for the AHL. This one featured a trade that has some AHL parts in it here. So Jacob McDonald and Martin Count leave the Colorado Avalanche organization to go to San Jose for Matt Nieto and Ryan Merkley. A very surprising trade, although it was rumored that Merkley had asked out of San Jose. Nieto is one I guess they're just going to keep passing back and forth until he retires. And we're going to look at this from an AHL perspective, which, us being an AHL podcast, that tracks. But neither McDonald nor Nieto really matter on the AHL side of this, is they really haven't been AHL full-time guys in a while. So to me, this comes down to Merkley for Kaut here. Both are on the AHL rosters for their respective new teams, and that's an easy one to do the analysis for me. That's Martin Kaut by a mile. Kaut has been a very solid AHL player, whereas Merkley has been a guy who, in moments will flash brilliance, and then in other moments in the same shift flash just sheer stupidity. Consistent, the more productive, the more efficient. Merkley has a lot of potential, but potential doesn't, show up on the score sheet all the time. Quickly, though, from an NHL perspective, the Avalanche definitely win this trade. McDonald's a very good, number 6 defenseman, but that's pretty much it. Kaut has never been able to translate that steadiness at the AHL level to the show in an effective way. Nieto is an effective fourth liner who can kill penalties, and Merkley still has NHL upside. You can see the flashes at times. And I trust the Avs to develop defensemen because, Bowen Byram, Cale Makar, they have a long history of developing young defensemen. Sarah, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, this feels like a trade that the Sharks / Barracuda made largely because of the Ryan Merkley problem of he wanted out. I think they were done with him. Everything I've heard is that there was sort of a don't let the door hit you on the way out kind of thing. So it kind of seems like they knew they had to move him, and they sent him to a good organization. If he's going to develop, and turn things around and get a fresh start, you can't really go wrong with Colorado. But yeah, this just sort of seems like the Sharks realizing and recognizing they needed to do something to move him on. And this is the deal that they also were able to ship out an NHL piece, give Long Beach native Matt Nieto, another chance at playing for a team that is vaguely more relevant than the Sharks.
Yeah, and the Avalanche need penalty killers too. They're, I think, last I looked, like in the bottom third of the league in penalty kill. Matt Nieto is an effective penalty killer who knows how to kill penalties for Jared Bednar in that system. So that's an easy piece for them. McDonald and Kaut really just never seemed to be like McDonald was good in the very few minutes they played him, and Kaut wasn't. So moving on from either of them seems fine to them to get a piece they probably could use and a piece that might be useful in the future.
Yeah.
But hearing that Merkley, I remember when he got drafted, everyone was like, oh, that kid's been, had locker room problems and been, kind of a selfish dickhead. And it sounds like not a whole lot change, which, I mean, but that's, that's hard to gauge too. Cause like, it's not like you see him, throwing water bottles at teammates on the bench, or, tearing his jersey off and dancing through the end zone, taunting the crowd as he leaves. Like, it's not that level.
Right.
So who knows?
Yeah.
The other big piece of news here is the AHL released the All-Star jerseys. And they look a little something like this. If you're listening on the podcast version, they look kind of like the Montreal Canadiens jerseys, except there's a big AHL logo that looks kind of like a USA Route 100 kind of theme to it. But the Central Division is blue with the red stripe in the middle. The Atlantic is white with red stripe. The North are red and look almost identical to the Canadiens logo or the Laval Rocket jerseys. And the Pacific, I think, are a grayish color. But Sarah, what are your thoughts on these? Let's get that before I chime in here.
I think they're great. I think we see leagues all the time, AHL, NHL, whatever, just come up with some real janky all-star jerseys. And these are really good. Like if Santa Claus deposited one on my doorstep, or I guess like birthday Claus, since that's closer than Christmas, like I would not complain. I feel like the difference between the gray and the white, like I maybe would have gone with like black, or like, I feel like they could have had slightly different colors. I know in like the initial video, everyone was kind of like, are those two white jerseys? But I like style wise, I like the logo pops. I don't even care that they've ripped off Montreal. You have to rip off Montreal / Laval. It's their all-star game.
And I feel like clearly one was going to be red, one was going to be blue, the other was going to be white, and they're just like,
what's left?
I don't really feel like we could do black. Like black is kind of an awkward choice for that striping. So it's like, all right, what other color can we do? It's like, well, I guess it's like a light gray.
Yeah.
I'm assuming they have some kind of backup plan in case like the Pacific and the who's white Atlantic end up playing each other or something like that.
I mean, they probably don't.
Because that's going to be super challenging to tell.
Yeah.
Like, it'll be easy for us on the color broadcast, but like on the ice at a moment's notice, I'm sure there are going to be some screw ups, but it's the All-Star game. Who cares?
Whatever.
These are good though. For who's hosting and kind of, playing into the city, I think they're good, and I think they'll sell well in Laval. Like, I can't imagine there are going to be a bunch of, people who are in Cedar Park, Texas, or in Charlotte who are jumping at the chance to buy these, but that's fine. And you're right, the NHL usually does some kind of like goofy looking ones too that are very either bland or poorly done. This year's, though, for the NHL, those are the best All-Star jerseys they've had since they stopped wearing the old version of those, pretty much.
Yeah, they're great.
And I have a couple All-Star jerseys. Like, some of them have been okay-ish, but, like, by and large, they've been very or terrible. Like, they're more successful ones are, okay.
Yeah.
The AHLs have at least definitely tried to do a little more, sometimes too much. I own the one that has like the leaf coming up the side. It's a jersey. It's a choice. But most of them, these are fine though. I do like them. All right then. Let's move on to our dives into teams here. Sarah, kick us off.
All right. So we are starting with the Bridgeport Sound Tigers. On December 1st, the Sound Tigers were 12-7 and on pace for a 106-point season. Here we are, tail end of January, just 22 games later, and they're now 18-23 and on pace for a 75-point season. So what happened to the Sound Tigers team that we thought for like just a hot minute looked like a serious playoff team?
Well, let's start with the obvious. Important pieces like Hudson Fashing, who hasn't played for them since November 30th, 11 points in 18 games. That's not nobody. Atu Ratu has missed 13 games in that stretch, 15 points in 27 games overall, someone they need in the lineup. Robin Salo's missed 14 games in that stretch, 4 points in 11 games, so he hasn't done too much for them, but in general is someone you want on the ice. Vincent Savini missed 6 games, has 14 points in 30 games. Parker Wotherspoon missed 14 games in that stretch. He has 12 points in 27. Also, Corey Schneider played only 9 of those 22 games. And that means that the Sound Tigers went from a .926 goalie starting the majority of their games to a tandem that averaged .877. That is going to tank pretty much every team when you're dropping, what is that? 50 points of save percentage value. Yeah, that's always going to hurt. And I'm sure some of that is tied to there being useful parts on the defensive side. I mean, that's 3 useful defensemen, 2 useful forwards, and your star goalie missing significant time in between those times. They've also had guys like Holmstrom and Hutton and a few others miss, some time as well. Is that group as important as the one we talked about? No, but they're more valuable than the Jimmy Lamberts and Blade Jenkinses and Ian McKinnons of the world that are replacing them in the lineup. So yeah, that hurts. Ishkakov and Andreov have also cooled down a little bit after that red hot start to the season. Some of that we saw coming. Andreov we kind of believed could maybe sustain that production. He's taken a little bit of a dip. Ishkakov we were like, nah, that guy's coming down to earth a little bit more. And all of that gets combined with their very bad puck luck, which I will pull up the chart here. If you remember the last time we checked in with them, like they were kind of just floating around in like the right around 100. They were one of the most consistent teams in the AHL in terms of puck luck. And then they went on this just beautiful slide. Let me pull it up here. Yeah. They did this.
Oh, no.
Yep. Now, they made quite the bounce back in the last week. But, like, that is, like, just chugging along, perfectly sustainable, and then so, yeah. That also happened to them, which was not ideal. But heading into December, like we said, one of the most consistent teams. And then, all in all, Bridgeport's really hit kind of just a skid of injuries, call-ups, and bad luck, and took a nosedive in the standings for it. Now, a good portion of that talent is back, and we'll see if they can start to, reclaim and build back to where they were. Lucky for them, outside of Hershey, their upcoming schedule is a lot of Springfield, Hartford, and Wilkes-Barre-Scranton. So if they can't at least take home some points in those games, then it might be time to sound Tiger the alarm. But I think this is a team that is going to bounce back here a little bit. I don't think that we will be thinking of them in a month as that contender we did at the beginning of the season. I think they managed to catch a little bit of lightning in the bottle there. But I'm I think they're still going to be a playoff team that could maybe, battle to a playoff series win like they did last year. But I don't expect at this point there to be much more than that. I think the truth of this team is probably somewhere in the middle based on what we saw early and what we're seeing now.
Sound Tiger the alarm, man. We still have a little bit of time before we move on to our next team. So let's humor Mitch Anderson out there with some William Dufour analysis. So maybe not the deepest of dives on him, but what have you seen so far?
I mean, it's hard not to be impressed with him, especially the things that we were kind of concerned about him coming into this season. How would his skating hold up, as he was not someone who was very fleet of foot? How would he handle not being the biggest, strongest, most physical player out there anymore, because he came straight from the WHL, where he was just gigantic and could push, these 16-year-olds around like they were toddlers. His shot was something we always thought would be good, but like seeing him, his skating has definitely improved to the point where it's not an obvious weakness. He could just very likely at least keep pace in the NHL. He's doing a pretty good job of it in the AHL. I think he's handled the physicality of pro hockey pretty well, especially that he's no longer, a man amongst boys. But he can still battle through to an impressive extent. He's not getting pushed around, even though he's no longer, the dominant guy on the ice. His shot remains, incredibly deadly, although I think sometimes he trusts it a bit too much. And I think he would be better served dialing back a little and taking some shots from better places, as opposed to always just, shoot Han Solo mentality. His deployment is a bit concerning to me recently, though. His last game at Hartford, he played with Jimmy Lambert and Kyle McLean, Jeff Kubiak and Cole Bardreau the game before that. I mean, were no lesser line mates available, Brent Thompson? He's still getting power play time, which is good and important, as we've talked about, for getting production, getting into the groove, especially when you're, dragging around Jeff Kubiak for 12 minutes, 13 minutes a night at even strength. A few times watching his power play shifts, though, I still think he gets a little trigger happy too. I think more, he's not as trigger happy 5-on-5, but on the power play, I feel like at times he's throwing pucks at net that are very low danger. It's a shot the goalie has clear vision on. There's nobody in front of him. There's no screen. The goalie's on his mark, and he's still throwing it on the net anyway. And it's like, I understand when you're shooting as effectively as he is, you get the leeway to kind of, take some shots that maybe you shouldn't because you're William Dufour and can rip pucks. But overall, I've been very happy with his progress. We do have to talk about that call up to the New York Islanders for a second, though. 6:48 of playing time. Why? Why did you even bother? Like, I can't even cook a brick of Top Ramen instant noodles in 6 minutes and 48 seconds. What could you possibly have learned about William Dufour in the NHL when you give him less ice time than it takes to listen to American Pie by Don McLean? Ryan Reeves, I looked this up. Ryan Reeves has gotten more ice time than 6 minutes and 48 seconds in every single game he's played this season, except for the season opener.
Oh, no.
6 minutes and 48 seconds. Like, I don't even care who his line mates were. He got, I think, if I remember right, he got like Anders Lee and Matt Barzal. Like, he got good line mates, but still, 6:48. Why? What was the purpose of that? Like, his warm-up lap was probably the most he was on the ice that game. I don't know. But, like, he's come back to Bridgeport. He's looked good. I think he's got a bright future ahead of him as like a middle six kind of forward. If that's with the Islanders, I don't know. Like, they seem to be in kind of a go for it mode. And if, good old Uncle Lou thinks that like he has a contender, he will, throw caution to the wind and go for it, which is one of the few things about Lou in this day and age that I still agree with and have respect for. But 6:48, it's like that's embarrassing.
Yeah.
All right. We have 7 other teams to cover. So, it's time for us to move on here. Let's talk about the Springfield Thunderbirds. It's been an up and down year for the T-Birds, who were hoping to recapture some of that magic that led them to a Calder Cup finals appearance last season. Instead, it's been a struggle bus for them. They have not been able to climb up the Sarah, what do things look like right now for the T-Birds?
So 2023 started on a down note for Springfield. They had 4 straight losses, Utica, Hershey, and Bridgeport twice. I feel like when you're losing to Bridgeport, when Bridgeport's having that like downswing in their play, like that's not great. And those losses really helped them plummet down the standings. They were last for a little bit in their division, but that spot has been turned over to Hartford now. They have kind of turned things around in their most recent games, though, so maybe things are looking a little more up. They just had a road trip through the Midwest, which they swept. They won over Milwaukee 2-1, 7-2 over Rockford, 3-2 in Grand Rapids. In that Grand Rapids game, they even came back from a 2-0 deficit to win it in overtime. So, you know, a good trip through the Midwest should have them kind of in a good place coming back home to play some more games. One thing I did note is that they've had some rough games lately for Joel Hofer in net. In a game against Bridgeport, he was pulled after 2 periods because he allowed 6 straight goals. That doesn't help your team win goals. A couple nights before that, he allowed 5 to Hershey, so he's in a little bit of a slump, and it's going to be crucial to get him going again. He and Vadim Zarenko both have made a pretty good tandem. When we look at the model, Hofer's even pegged as a quality starting goaltender, so we know that he can do it. It's just sort of a rough patch right now. When we look at sort of that goaltending chart from the model, you know, they're kind of square in the middle. In terms of the difficulty of the work that they're having to do and the results that they're getting. So they're in a good place. I think they just sort of need to weather this tough stretch that he's having right now. Springfield generally allows more shots in regulation than they take. They take 28.9 on average versus 32.1. It's not nearly the biggest discrepancy in the league, but doing more work to start limiting the shots against is going to help Hofer particularly weather the stretch that he's in right now. Of course, anytime we talk about Springfield, we have to talk about our old friend Martin Ferk, who on the day we were recording this 3 years ago to this day is when he murdered a puck for fun in Ontario. So, you know, but he's, you know, not going to the All-Star game this year. Whatever. I don't make the decisions. I
thought it was funny, too, that the AHL decided that they were like, hey, we're going to retweet this 3 years ago today. Martin Ferk did this. And it's like, you do realize we all are aware that we don't get to see him do it again because you chose to not let him do it. Whatever. All right. Sorry. Go ahead.
So when we've checked on him throughout this year, you know, I've kind of been wondering if it was cause for concern because he hasn't been scoring quite as much as I think we're used to seeing him do it. It seems like he's finally gotten into a groove more recently. He's up to 12 goals in the season, 34 points overall. 6 of those goals are power play goals, which on the one hand, that is 50% of his goal total, which is a lot. On the other hand, it feels like he should have way more just in terms of volume. Last year in Ontario, though, you know, he had 15 of his 40 goals were power play goals, so 38%. So 50's great. It's amazing. Over his last 10 games, he's got 4 goals and 7 assists. So he's definitely kind of turning things on. He's largely getting top line minutes with Matthew Highmore and Matthew Peka. One thing that I noticed that sort of concerned me is that he doesn't seem to be shooting the puck quite as often. There's more games that he's having no shots, which I feel like is odd for Martin Ferk. Or at least he's taking shots and they're not getting to where they're supposed to get. You know, if you've ever watched him, you know that the side effect of that heavy shot of his is sometimes he's very far away from the net. Sometimes he misses by several feet, but it seems like he's missing more than usual. I'd love to see shot attempts in this league, but we'll never get it. Right now, he's got 87 shots over 35 games. That's an average of 2.5 shots per game. His slow start to the season comes in again here. His first 10 games, he averaged 1.9 shots per game. Over the last 10 games, he's at 2.3. So things, again, are ticking up. Looking at his past seasons, last year in Ontario, had 184 shots in 58 games for an average of 3.2. The season before, he didn't spend too much time in Ontario because of injuries and being up in the NHL. Averaged 2.6. The year before, he averaged 3 shots per game. In his career in Grand Rapids, kind of that same swing, 3.6 one year, 2.9 another year, for a career average of 2.6. So he's basically like just a little under his career average. And so maybe it's just that when he was in Ontario, he was frequently seen with TJ Tynan, who we know excels as a playmaker, a passer. Like, that is his thing. No offense to the Matthews, Highmore, and Pekka, but they're not TJ Tynan. And so, the quality of player he's with is probably limiting the amount of times that he's even going to get the puck for those opportunities. I know that Josh Levo is part of the organization. He's been a combination of injured and called up to the NHL, but it would have been interesting to see what they could do together had they been, really on the Thunderbirds at the same time. In some ways, it feels like much ado about nothing, because when I looked at all of those numbers, the numbers basically say he's kind of right around where he always is. And I think from seeing him so much in Ontario, it seems like maybe he's streakier this year. There were a lot of times in Ontario where he had, long stretches of goals every game. Here it's a lot more back and forth. But, he's second overall in team scoring. He's tied for first in goals. So do we need to worry about Martin Frk? Probably not. But I just want to see him score more goals, because that's what he does. It is important to note overall, looking at the team, all because they're in 7th place, that doesn't mean it's the end of the world. Charlotte is currently in 3rd with 46 points. Springfield in 7 has 41 points. That is just one hot streak of play away from bouncing back up into the playoff picture, and the model does have them sneaking into the last slot in that division. So it's not all doom and gloom. You just kind of have to weather this rough patch and then see where you come out.
The other thing, too, I think we may be underselling a little bit here is Martin Frk is turning 29 this year.
Yeah.
Or is already 29. In 2023, he will be turning 30. Like, Father Time is undefeated. And like, mechanically, his shot should age fine. But, like, it's one of those, too, where, the speed to get to place the spots he needs to be. Or, as you said, Matthew Highmore isn't TJ Tynan. Like, he's still really good, but TJ Tynan is a playmaker in a class by himself. Or if it's not by himself, it doesn't take very long to call the roll. But, like, I think we could be seeing a combination of both of those things here. But at the same point, too, I think maybe next time we swing around to Springfield, I'll take a peek at some of the games and do shot attempts for Martin Frk, because that is actually concerning. If he's not just if he's hitting the net less, or if he's just being more inaccurate, or if guys are really willing to put their shin pads in front of that thing.
Why?
Like, as a player, I'm a shot blocker. If I saw that dude winding up, I'd be like, nope.
No, other way.
I will let you walk right through it. Nope. Nope.
Yeah.
A broken femur is not worth that.
No.
All right. So let's move on here. I'd like to talk about that a little bit more, but, we have time constraints a little bit and 6 more teams to cover. So let's get to it. Let's go to the North Division and talk about the center of the hockey universe. Sarah, kick us off.
All right, that is indeed the Toronto Marlies, who have the #1 power play in the AHL in both raw and net power play percentage. They do so, however, atop a division that has 0 teams above the AHL average in net penalty kill or raw penalty kill percentage. So the old saying is your goaltender has to be your best penalty killer. And as we learned trying to pick goaltenders for our AHL All-Star teams, the North Division isn't exactly overflowing with quality goaltending these days. So that begs the question, is this Marlies power play actually good, or is this a mirage?
I think it's actually good, but like we talked about last week when we talked about Coachella Valley, I think there's a little bit of an asterisk on it. It's like a Houston Astros World Series win or Reggie Bush's Heisman Trophy. To be clear, I don't think the Marlies are cheating or anything, but there's evidence on both sides of how good this power play is. Like, I don't think anyone thinks it sucks, and I'm not trying to say that, but like the range of how good it is, I think, is a little fuzzy. For one, the Marlies have actually completed 12 games outside the North Division, which is not what I was expecting to find when I looked at their schedule. They've had 4 against Grand Rapids, 4 against Abbotsford, 1 completed game against Manitoba, 1 against Lehigh Valley, 1 at Wilkes-Barre Scranton, and 1 against Rockford. Now, are all those teams solid PK units they're going against? No, they are not. In terms of net PK through Tuesday's data, Lehigh Valley is 31st, Rockford is 22nd, Grand Rapids is 25th, and Abbotsford is 27th. But, I forgot. They also played a game against Milwaukee. Milwaukee is 10th. Manitoba is 9th. Wilkes-Barre Scranton is 12th. And against those good penalty kills, the Marlies are 2 for 8. That's a horrendously small sample size, I'm aware, but it's at least some piece of evidence that this isn't just, hey, we play crappy teams on the penalty kill. That's why we're succeeding. And when you look at the Marlies power play on film, you see a lot of good things that you'd want to see from the number one power play in the league. They use the double drop zone entry, but they also mix in some other entry strategies to keep teams on their toes. They don't just exclusively use one. I've seen them use the center swing a couple times, which I was shocked by. But you can also see that their players have the freedom to improvise on entries if they see something that they can exploit. I've seen quite a few spots where guys were the first player up the ice on the drop pass play, and they're like about to turn and make the drop pass, and they're like, yeah, but no, I'm going to walk this in, because they had the space. That versatility on entries, plus the freedom to kind of have players work as they see it, that makes you a lot harder to defend against, regardless of what penalty kill you're up against. That's just more things they have to prepare for. In the zone, the Marlies use the 1-3-1, the same thing that 90% of teams do, but they don't just work the puck outside and kind of load up shots from distance with traffic and tips and blah blah blah. They look for royal road passes. They look to work pucks into the slot. They use the bumper. Like, they understand how to work in that structure the way it was meant to be done, as opposed to just, oh, this is the new umbrella. And it's really like the one thing about it that I've been a big fan of is Semyon Dargachintsev on the half wall and his ability to just find seams through the penalty kill from those spots. It's really maximizing his ability while minimizing his weaknesses for the most part. He's not someone who's good at battling through space because he's smaller than I am. He's a decent shooter, but like what he's world class at is passing and finding seams, especially if you give him time and space. And on the power play from the half wall on his strong side, that's like the power play runs through him. And that's because of his ability to distribute. He's currently 8th in the AHL in primary power play assists. So that's not nothing. And that's good coaching to put him in that spot and utilize him as well as the Marlies do. I do feel like at times they get a little trigger happy on the outside. Shaw in particular has fired a couple of shots in recent games where I'm like, that wasn't going in. Like, I knew that wasn't going in as soon as I saw you winding up. You didn't get the goalie to move that much. You had nobody screening him in front. He had a clear look at it. It was a really obvious setup to you. But, when you're the guy that's tied for third in the AHL in power play goals this season, you get to have some leeway to pull the trigger in moments that you should. But I do think there are a couple spots where he's been a little overzealous and a little gun happy. All that being said, this is a very good power play. But is it a 29% conversion rate good? I struggle to believe so, despite the fact that I like a lot of the things they're doing on film, a lot of the way that it is schemed, a lot of the statistics we throw at you, and how well they execute. And I don't have any real, notes besides maybe a little trigger-happy Shaw. This isn't a historically great AHL power play, and finishing the season at a 29% rate seems unlikely to me. Plain and simple, I think they're getting boosted from the quality of goaltender and penalty kills they face in the North Division, as well as just genuine good puck luck. I still think there's a very good chance they finish with the number one power play in the AHL, but like we said with Cleveland when they were clicking at a rate over 30%, what they do works, and it works well, but it's going to cool down and probably be a few points closer to 25% by season's end. Like, if they finished 26-5 at the end of the season, I'd say that's probably about where they belong. Again, not impossible. 29%, nah, I don't believe it. You're going to have to tell me at the end that that's where they finished for me to believe that they could do it. But much like Coachella Valley, when we talked about them last weekend, this Marlies power play is good, but it's out kicking its coverage by just a little bit, and I expect it to regress a little. All right, that is our time in the North Division. That is our time in Toronto. We're staying in the North Division. We're going to Utica. The Utica Comets dominated the beginning of the 21-22 AHL season and never really looked back. They had some rough spots, but for the most part, they managed to get through. And they had that division title wrapped up like by January. It was like, yeah, they've got it. No one's catching them. But this season has been much more of a roller coaster. They're currently second place in the North Division, but they are 10 points behind the first place Marlies, and the rest of the division isn't too far behind the Comets. So what do the Comets have to do here, Sarah, to stay ahead of the pack?
All right, so this division really highlights the every hockey person's favorite word, the parity in the league, every sports person's favorite word, really, and how close some of these playoff races are going to be. So Utica right now, second place, 48 points. The Marlies have 58. Short of some sort of like epic implosion on Toronto's part, no one is chasing them down. Meanwhile, second place Utica and last place Cleveland are separated by 13 points. So there is a lot of room for movement in the standings, particularly with some teams still having 3 or 4 games in hand on others in that division. So staying ahead of the pack is going to be crucial for Utica, and they're going to need to be consistently beating those number 3 through 7 teams. Right now, they're 12-9-4 against fellow teams in the North Division. They're 3-0 against Belleville, 5-0 against Cleveland, which is great. They're 0-2-1 against Toronto, which is expected. It's the Marlies. They're 3-2-1 against Rochester. Great, fine, no complaints, no concerns. They're 1-4 against Syracuse and 0-1-2 against Laval. I don't like those. I don't like that at all. Recently, a lot of their games have been against Atlantic Division teams, but they played 3 straight games against Syracuse in January, where they had 1 overtime win. So they picked up the point, but they handed 1 to Syracuse. And then they lost twice to Syracuse. Overall, the Utica's record is 21-13-5-1. 4 of those overtime losses have come in their own division. So they're leaving a lot of points on the table by not being able to seal the deal in regulation against a team like Syracuse or Laval. Not great. In general, there have been some wild swings in their play lately. They had a 5-1 win over Bridgeport and then lost the next game 5-1 to Syracuse. They got shut out by Syracuse 2-0. Next game, they won 3-2 against the same Syracuse team. And then they lost 4-0 to Charlotte. So it's been very up and down right now for the Utica Comets. Or the Utica, they're not the Comets anymore, are they? Are they my brain just totally went blank on what they are. Whatever.
They're the Comets, yes.
Yeah. Yes, it's the devil jersey. Yes.
And people have been concerned about that too, because it's been popping up a bit here. Like they have a retro one, and then their Save the Day jersey is Utica Devils themed. And there have been some whispers on the fan base like, no, you're not.
Right, don't do it.
No, don't put any ideas.
Do it.
I don't think that's going to happen. Like,
no.
I think Robert Escher said quite a few times that like they're not going to do that, and because they're independent, like the Devils can't make them.
Right,
like
they can do whatever they want.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was the game against Charlotte. They wore that alternate jersey, the Devils inspired jersey, and I feel like it just melted in my brain. Also, very hard to read the numbers on that jersey in their stream quality. Didn't love that, but still a cool jersey. But back to the facts. Goaltending for Utica, it's been fine, but not great. Both Dawes and Schmidt have spent some time in the NHL. Dawes also missed some time recently, taking personal leave for a family matter. So regardless of who you have in net, you need to get them both going in a groove. Scoring overall is better than it was earlier in the season as well. When we talked about them previously, my main takeaway was no one is scoring goals, and you can't win when no one does that. But right now, the defense is kind of what I'm concerned about. We've previously talked about some poor defensive habits from them, and it's not really looking like that's changing. Simon Nemec continues to impress as a young defenseman in the league, but he can't carry things on his own. Aside from Tyler Wotherspoon, who the model also predicts as a first pairing defenseman, basically everyone else kind of ranks in that third pairing or replacement level kind of tier, which leaves your top guys kind of hanging when they don't really have too many quality players under them. At the end of the day, no matter how impressive Nemec is, he's still just 18 years old. His birthday is next month. He's still 18. He's going to make mistakes because that's what rookies of any age do, but especially a rookie who is 18. It's just how it's going to go. I looked at that game against Charlotte where they lost 4-0, and looked at the goals against. The first goal, there were several minutes of play where Charlotte basically was controlling play. They didn't have a ton of shots, but they had just enough possession time to disrupt Utica from getting the puck back or even getting into the zone. There was some sloppy work along the board, some puck battles that Utica really could have won. Nemec digs the puck out along the boards. Great, good, love it. He then proceeds to throw a pass in front of his own net where 2 Charlotte players are. Bad, don't love that. It didn't go in the net, but Utica wasn't able to continue to hold the puck. They tried to get it out of the zone. Our favorite Jerry Mayhew has been scoring, and he intercepted it at the blue line, passes to Connor Bunneman, who scores the goal. The second goal against, the puck got stolen from Brian Pinto against the boards. A cross-ice pass evaded Riley Walsh, who was stuck in the middle of the 2 players. So again, some kind of sloppy work along the boards didn't help them out. Third goal against, it was a power play. The rebound goes right to Riley Nash. I don't know. What are you going to do? That happens. And then the fourth goal against, it seems like 1, maybe 2 Utica players lose track of who they're covering in general. 4 of the 5 skaters for Utica converge on the net. The 2 Charlotte players have already gained position in front of the goaltender, and the eventual goal scorer, Jerry Mayhew, is left all alone, totally open at the goaltender's right. So lots of things went wrong on that play. And I think that those goals against, aside from the power play one, kind of speak to those same issues we've been seeing previously of just a little lack of the details with them. So it doesn't really feel like huge changes need to be made to continue to hang on to where they're at. It's more small tweaks, better awareness, better communication. And they should be okay. As the saying goes, the devil's in the details.
Very well done. Golf clap. Nicely done at the end there. I'd say one of the biggest concerns, though, that I would have on Utica's defense has been Riley Walsh. Him in the defensive zone was never going to be the thing that was his calling card. It was going to be something that, as long as he played to a draw, more or less, that was great because what he could do, in transition and in the offensive zone was what was going to get him paid. But he's not been that offensive juggernaut that we've seen from there. His offensive prowess has not been on display these seasons. And that's been concerning for me, especially as, his defense looks like it's taking a step back, which is also not ideal. I think, next time we swing around with Utica, that's who I want to look at is what's going on specifically with Riley Walsh. But we are going to take a break here. After the break, we are going to talk about Grand Rapids, Chicago, San Diego, and Ontario, and Ontario, and Ontario, and Ontario. If you were just here for an Eastern Conference team, thank you for stopping by. Don't forget to subscribe so you get episodes in a timely fashion, because this isn't going to be very useful to you next week when we're talking about things that are, happening now. So check us out on social media as well. We have a lot of fun there. We post some memes. We, throw out some jokes. Links to all of that and more can be found on our Linktree page at linktr.ee/the Calder Farmstead. Want to run some ads, pay some bills. We will be right back. Stay tuned. We are back from break, and we are on the West Coast in the Central Division. We're going to talk about the Grand Rapids Griffins, who spent most of their time kind of lingering in the bottom slot in the Central Division or, thereabouts. And we talked about them previously on the show. The thought has always been if they could only buy a save, they would be, improving. The Griffins are still in the basement of the standings, but are they finally getting some saves, Sarah?
So it's hard to say that things have been turning around specifically for the Griffins. They're not going to make the playoffs. They're not going to have some miraculous turnaround, But they could have something to play for this season as time goes on, even if that is just playing spoiler to other teams. Like that can be kind of fun. Why not? Since the start of the calendar year, they've won 4 of 9, which looks great. They briefly dropped down to last place in the division, but looks like they're just going to keep kind of swapping that last spot with the Wolves. But you asked if they're finally getting some saves, and the answer to that is yes. And that's because the Red Wings sent down Alex Nedeljkovic after a conditioning stint of the classic, oops, we have 3 goalies, and now none of you gets regular playing time kind of variety. They ended up waiving him to keep him in the AHL. He's too good for this level, but he can't seem to keep it together at the NHL level when he doesn't really have a high caliber team in front of him like the Hurricanes. Grand Rapids has used 5 different goalies this year. It's a small sample size, but Nedeljkovic has the best goals against average of those 5 goalies. He's at 2.35 over 8 games. He has the second best save percentage. He's at 922, just behind Magnus Hellberg, who hardly played at all. Between Victor Brattström, Jussi Okanora, and Sebastian Kosa, the Griffins just weren't getting the saves that they needed from any of those guys. Nedeljkovic has 4 wins. Brattström has 2 in 10. That tells you, I think, kind of everything that you were getting from those goaltenders previously. It's fully possible that he can and will steal some wins for them. Games that they probably shouldn't be winning, he could keep them in it. He had a 27 save shutout against Chicago recently, saved 35 of 37 against Rockford. It's not going to be enough to change their fortunes to get them into the playoffs. I mean, anything can happen, but it feels doubtful. But so long as he stays there and Detroit either doesn't call him up or move him at the deadline, he'll at least give them some confidence for their situation in net, which I think they were lacking before. And it seems doubtful that he's going to get moved unless Detroit needs money. But, maybe someone's looking for a number 3, but wanted a better deal than just picking him up on waivers. Who knows? But better goaltending isn't going to patch up all of their problems. Taro Hirose, Austin Czarnik, Joel L'Esperance, all contributing well on offense, but they've got a whole lot of other players who aren't really doing a whole lot of anything. A large number of guys are kind of hitting at that replacement level or fourth liner level. And try as some teams might, but you can't have a team made up entirely of fourth liners. Doesn't work that way. They're also shockingly unlucky. Their estimated PDO right now is at 98.05. That's not great. Things are improving. It's been trending up since Nedeljkovic joined the team, but it's hard to turn a ship around when they've gone that far in the wrong direction in the first place. They have, like I said, won 4 of their last 10, including a strong game against Rockford. It was a 5-2 win. So what if it was a sort of NHL goalie versus a basically ECHL goalie? They won against Texas. So there's some good things happening. They're finally getting saves, but it does feel a little bit like too little too late for them.
I will say, too, I think there's a very good chance that the Red Wings sent him down and waived him to keep Magnus Hellberg, because then they can accrue more cap space for the deadline. Yeah. Not because they're going to be buyers, but because they're going to be a team that is like that third party that facilitates, some trade of, not Connor Garland. Who's the dude from Phoenix that everyone is losing their mind about?
Chychrun?
Yes, Jacob Chychrun. Like, that they're going to be a team that, like, trades for Chychrun, retains half his salary, and then trades him to his final destination for, like, a second-round pick or something. And this helps this move putting Nedeljkovic and his $3 million salary in the minors versus a league minimum for Hellberg, or close to it, saves them a daily cap hit that accrues, and that's how it works. So, they could move Nedeljkovic, which while also accruing his cap space, or accruing deadline cap space, which just helps them even more. So I think that's more likely the reason he's still there, as opposed to, like, because I think the Red Wings are like, all right, we're not doing stuff this season. Let's just
whatever
accrue cap space, accrue assets, improve draft status. But I don't know. Part of me wants to believe that the Griffins can figure it out, but the other part of me is like, at least with Nedeljkovic and them getting saves, like, it's not miserable anymore.
Right.
Like, they are able to pull out some cool games. So that's, I think, useful. Yeah. And it makes my analysis look more right from earlier. So we're going to go with that story.
Exactly.
All right, Sarah, we are both in the state of Illinois right now. So it seems like it would be rude not to talk about the defending Calder Cup champions.
All right. So I'm excited that you got to watch the Wolves this week. I spend a ton of time watching them, so I'm always excited to have someone else get some input on the Wolves. The defending Calder Cup champions, they won just 8 of their first 25 games this season. Fans were noticeably unhappy, calling for head coach Brock Sheehan's job. Since then, they've won 6 of 13, which isn't stellar, but it's an improvement and has kickstarted the Wolves' long and arduous journey out of the AHL cellar. So what is behind the improvement, and do the Wolves still have a chance to get into the postseason with work that still needs to be done?
All right, so let's start with some obvious ones here. The Wolves are 9th in the AHL in lost value from call-ups and injuries across the whole league. That means they've lost the 9th most value. The model estimates that to be about 13 points in the standings, worse off than they would have been should they have been, at full strength the entire time. Now, obviously, no team keeps the same roster for 72 games, but as we've said before in talking about the Wolves and many other teams, you can't just throw ECHLs in your top 6 and expect to win games in the AHL. It's just not a thing that happens. You can have the most airtight and perfect system and scheme coached up, but if you have guys who can't execute at a high level in your lineup, it doesn't matter because execution is better than scheme every single time. The Blake Murrays, Logan Lambdens, and Oliver Coopers of the world aren't going to do a lot more for you than dump and chase and crash the net. And while that's fine for fourth line minutes where you don't expect more than that and just kind of hope they play to a draw, you can't have those guys be responsible for carrying bigger offensive loads because, well, they can't. They can't put one-timers into top corners from 25 feet away. They can't float passes over sprawling defensemen on 2-on-1s. They can't time windows for Royal Road passes that are only open for half a second. You also need goalies who can make big saves and stop pucks at least above average rate, especially when your defense has been thinned out. And that's literally never been Zach Sawchenko. Now, the Wolves have Ryan Suzuki healthy for now. Jack Drury, Kevin Fitzgerald, and Pyotr Kochekov all are back in the lineup. Brian Dzingel and Mackenzie McEachern are still out, and there's no timeline for their return, which blows because they'd obviously be huge additions back to this roster because then that pushes, your depth down a peg and makes you just a more difficult team to play against. But still, getting back 2 top 6 forwards, a top pair defenseman, and a quality starting goaltender is a massive boost and part of why you see the Wolves starting to find their game a little bit. To me, that says the lineup they can put out right now is the best one they could put out right now is something like Reese Ponomarov, Tiki Sala, Gunnar Drury Melnick, Perlini, Suzuki, Strumwell, and some fourth line that's like Passion, Susi, Slamdon. On D, you could do Fitzgerald Honka, Lajoie Lagerson, and Mendel Green. Honestly, the Wolves need more right-handed defensemen so they don't have to play lefties on the right side. And if you're not sure why playing lefties on the right side is bad, if Max Lajoie was right-handed, Boko Amama's goal on Wednesday probably doesn't happen. But he's going up the boards backhanded instead of on his forehand, and that makes a big difference in the control that you have and your ability to look and find passing lanes and stuff like that. Still, that lineup is more than good enough to win games against teams like Tucson, Grand Rapids, Cleveland, etc. Now, I specifically picked those teams because they just got blasted in 2 games by Tucson being outscored 9-2 across both games. And that brings me to what the Wolves still need to work on. Executing in transition. We talk about the importance of transition. It feels like almost every show we do because it can't be understated. If you're unfamiliar with the term transition, it basically means the act of going from playing defense to playing offense. It includes everything from forechecking to breakouts, every breakaway, odd man rush, turnover, etc. It all begins with a good play in transition or capitalizing on a bad play in transition by the other team. You can't score goals if you can't get the puck out of your D zone and into the offensive zone. That's about as basic a hockey concept that exists. And the patient zero of bad plays in transition in this series against Tucson were goaltenders. Kochekov turns one over in the second that makes it 1-0. Like, if he just puts his glove on that puck or makes a pass, if I remember right, it's to the bottom right circle to his defenseman that's there. That goal probably doesn't go in. Zach Sawchenko turned over basically every puck he touched, which was a lot of them. Now, I don't think any directly led to goals, which was miraculous, but it definitely led to his team not being able to get out of their own zone and potentially go score goals. I am a big believer that goalies 5-on-5 should basically just never, ever try and play the puck. Just stop it, leave it, or very clearly pass it to one of your defensemen. 5-on-4, go nuts. Make stretch passes. Go crazy. But 5-on-5, don't do that. And the Wolves have been sloppy in transition all season. But when your roster is a skeleton crew of ECHLers, just like we talked about, your transition is going to get sloppier because they're guys who are getting call-ups and PTOs because they can't make crisp passes in small windows. But now that the Wolves have Suzuki healthy, Drury back, Fitzgerald back, the burden is on them to execute. They didn't in this series against Tucson, but I have faith that this will work itself out. Those are talented players who have shown execution ability in transition before, and it's not like Brock Sheehan is having them run some bonkers-ass, scheme. As for playoffs, the model currently has the Wolves at a 27.7% chance to make the playoffs with the roster they have right now. Should somehow Double Mac and Dezingle McCringleberry rise from the dead like The Undertaker, those chances are going to shoot up. So if you've given up on this team for the season, you have done so too early. The margins are slim here, and this roster needs to stay healthy and in Chicago by and large. But this team can, not will, but can climb out of the cellar and give its fans a team that it can take pride in for cheering it for them once again. There's work to be done. There's things to be fixed. But this team is not dead yet. Don't count them out. Chicago can climb out of hell here. All right, Sarah, any thoughts on Chicago before we move on here?
I think the one biggest thing to me, and this is one of those things that doesn't necessarily show up in numbers, but shows up from being around them, is that just the body language of players, just the way that they're coming on and off the ice, the way that they're, when I go talk to them after games, is so much different now than it was at the very beginning of the season. They know they have a lot of hard work to do, but you're seeing a change. They have bought into the system that they're playing. They are starting to use each other more. I'm seeing much less of the every man for himself, not playing as a connected unit than we did earlier in the season. So, and that's the stuff that gives me hope that they will, like you said, pull out of that basement. They're, this blob against Tucson aside, they've had a bunch of games in a row where they've scored 4, 5, 6 goals. That was unheard of at the beginning of the season. So the puzzle pieces are all starting to click into place. They just need like you said, they need to stay healthy, and Carolina needs to not steal anybody anymore to keep it together.
Yeah, I also I'm going to beat the drum. I know right-handed puck-moving defensemen are, having one of those drop into your lap is, you might as well just ask for lotto tickets. It's just, I don't know what it is, why so many defensemen are left-handed. I am a right-handed defenseman personally, and it never occurred to me that if only I were good at hockey, I could have, had a decent career just on the base of my handedness. But it's playing defense on your offside is very hard, especially at a high level where dudes are hitting you and putting direct pressure on you. Being able to balance pairs like that is important, and the Wolves can't do it right now because their two right-handed defensemen are Honka and Green sucks. So you're having to put guys in their offside and just hope that they can figure it out. And that's not ideal, but what do you do? Yeah. Right-handed puck-moving defensemen are rare, and when you get them, you don't give them up. So unless their front office can go fleece somebody out there, I don't think that's going to work out for them. Let's move on. Let's go to the best coast, the West Coast. Sarah, we have to talk about the Gulls.
We do. And the last time we talked about the Gulls, it was probably enough harping on the negatives for the time being. So we're going to flip the script today. We're going to talk about something on the positive side of things for the Gulls. Newsflash for me, the Gulls' penalty kill is very quietly 11th in the AHL in net penalty kill, and that is not a fluke. In their last 5 games, the Gulls are 93.3% in net penalty kill. So, Sean, how are the Gulls accomplishing this?
So let's start, for clarity's sake, defining net power play and net penalty kill and how that's different from raw power play and raw penalty kill, because I'm sure people who are looking at the AHL stats page are like, oh, they're 13th, and their last 5 games they gave up 3 power play goals. I actually found a scoring error. They've only given up 2 power play goals in that. For some reason in Ontario, they credited Elias Anderson with a power play goal that was not even close. It was very clearly 5-on-5, but whatever. That aside, If you go to the AHL's website and look at the special teams stats, that's raw penalty kill and raw power play. It's the number of times a team scored on the power play divided by the number of power plays they had. Same for penalty kills. Goals scored against times shorthanded. Net power play and net penalty kill factor in shorthanded goals. So if you score shorthanded, that wipes away a power play goal against. Same for if you give up a shorthanded goal. That wipes away a power play goal that you scored, because that's what net means. It's how many goals you netted. So I realize because the goals go into the net, that may not be the best phrasing, but it's basically like if you score on the power play, but the penalty kill scores a shorty against you, you didn't really gain anything. Kind of like if you're a punter in football and you punt the ball 60 yards, but they return it 40, your team only gained 20 yards from your punt, even though you had a great punt. Like, that's kind of the explanation for it. And for me, net power play and net penalty kill is a more effective way of describing how good a power play or penalty kill is. To answer your question, though, about the Gulls penalty kill, it's bizarre. It's real bizarre. The last time we talked about how bad the Gulls were playing was inside structure, that they constantly had guys in the D zone leaving their assignments and just kind of chasing the puck around. On the PK, you would swear some kind of Freaky Friday body switch thing was happening, because they've been incredibly disciplined and they play so well within structure. But that structure isn't unique. It's not like they're, going into the laboratory and doing some mad scientist things like Rockford did with their offense. Like, they're playing a 1-3-4 check and a check press in zone. And that's it. That's the same power play scheme that I'd say upwards of 80% of the teams in the AHL and NHL use. And for those who are newer and haven't heard us break down penalty kill things before, we're going to do that a little bit here. A 1-3-4 check is called that because that's physically what it looks like. It's one forward who's out there trying to steer the puck carrier in the, offensive zone and into the neutral zone. And the other three penalty killers basically get in a line like they're going to go line dancing in the neutral zone. And basically that's it. That first guy is trying to steer play into the boards right into the other three and create kind of a choke point right around the blue line. For a visual example here, here's a screenshot from their game against Coachella Valley recently. You can see one forechecker here, three guys in a not great line, but, a line. So this 1-3. Basically, all this guy is trying to do is just steer play into either side of the boards and create kind of a choke point there, where it's basically forcing the puck carrier to either dump the puck in or turn it over. Now, the check press, also known as the wedge +1, is their structure inside the zone. And that looks like this. In basic terms, one of the forwards and both the defensemen form kind of a triangle-like shape in the slot. They're trying to outman the offense in this, very important important area of the ice, right in the slot there. The other forward will basically act like a rover. His job is to kind of chase the puck wherever it goes in the zone. And the rover and the forward at the top of the triangle there also kind of interchange, meaning that if the offense makes a pass from one side of the ice to the other and the rover can't get there fast enough, instead of trying to chase the puck, he'll go and cover the top of the triangle there, and that guy will become the rover. And that'll happen several times. This allows them to cover more ground and balance energy levels, so three guys aren't standing still the whole time while one guy's skating around like a lunatic. And when you'll see the puck get below the dots, you also might see a defenseman kind of flex out of the triangle there and pressure the puck carrier too, which is fine. But that's, by and large, the systems they're using on the penalty kill. It's not new. It's not anything you won't see pretty much every other team use some version of. Teams from major junior to college to ECHL teams, NHL teams use some version of this scheme on the penalty kill. And they're different versions. Some are more passive with their rover and how much pressure they want, how hard they want it to chase. Some are more aggressive, and that's a balance. Too aggressive, you get caught out of position more often, but you break up our plays. Too passive, and you give the best offensive players in the other team too much time and space, but you don't get caught out of position. What makes the Gulls version different and impressive here isn't their aggressiveness or their passiveness. It's their discipline. As I'm sure you've seen watching power plays happen, the puck moves around a fair bit on the power play, to the point, to the sidewall, to below the goal, back to the point, so on and so forth. And every time that puck moves, passing lanes open and close. They change and move. So your penalty killers need to constantly make sure with every move of the puck, with every move of the players around them, that they're covering passing lanes to the slot. They're, net. They have guys at the net front boxed out. They're in potential shooting lanes, etc. And that's what makes what the Gulls here do so impressive. They're putting pressure on puck carriers, but everyone knows and executes their assignments. They're in the right places at the right times. When one guy goes to pressure, the other three seamlessly move into support. When a puck goes quickly from one half wall to the point to the other half wall, they all move seamlessly with it. They get sticks in passing lanes, shin pads in shooting lanes on a very frequent basis. And on top of that, the Gulls aren't just content getting turnovers and clearing the zone. No. They are looking to score shorthanded. When someone breaks up a pass or blocks a shot, that forward that's away from the puck, those guys are sprinting to the neutral zone to catch a pass for a breakaway or an odd man rush, maybe a little one-on-one where they can try and make Sports Center. This is a power kill, and it's effective. San Diego has 6 shorthanded goals this season. Only 6 teams in the AHL have more. And even when you look at power play goals they've given up recently, they're fluky. Bakersfield scored both of them. One the past Wednesday that was just good luck rebound, comes right to Tyler Tullio. Mama said there would be days like this. The other one was Bakersfield scored. It was the most recent power play goal from that one. That was on the 18th. That was kind of just a weird bounce off the back glass that just lands in the slot where Borgault puts it across to Savoy for an easy tap in. Like, kind of a fluky play. Nothing you can really do there from an X's and O's perspective except hope the puck bounces better off the glass for you than it did in that moment. That's the only 2 power play goals they've given up in the last 5 games. They blanked both Coachella Valley and Ontario on the power play. Those dudes, those teams can score power play goals. How is it, though, that the Gulls are playing so disciplined in this structure on the penalty kill and not 5-on-5? If I could answer you that question, I would be applying to coach the Gulls next season. But I do not have that answer. I'm not in the room. I'm not in the meetings. I don't know what they're saying, from penalty kill meetings to 5-on-5. But, on the PK, this is working. It's one area of the game, the team can take pride in, the fans can take pride in. It ain't much, but it is honest work. All right. I think that's enough to talk about for San Diego. Sarah, do you have anything to add about the Gulls penalty kill, or you're muted?
I'm so proud of the Gulls for having a good penalty kill. It's like you said, it's honest work. It goes unnoticed, I think, a lot of times. It's easy to get stuck on the rest of the picture for the Gulls, but yeah, I mean, if you have a good penalty kill, you can go far if the rest of the things fall into place. So good job, Gulls. I'm proud of you.
It was. I remember when I was trying to come up with all right, what are we going to talk about? I don't want to do another just let's smack the Gulls around. There's got to be something good. And I saw that. I was like, really now? And then I watched the film of it. I was like, this is good. This is really good. What? How? Sometimes weird things happen, but this is not a fluke. This penalty kill works really well. But let's move on and talk about the Ontario Reign. And we're going to be talking about the Reign for the rest of the episode here in one way or another. Like most top teams from last season, the Reign that dominated the Pacific Division for stretches of time is not the same team that's currently hanging into the number 5 spot in the Pacific Division. While they're nearly guaranteed a playoff appearance, they're pretty locked into that spot and are projected to finish the season with 82 points. What has happened to the Reign to land them here, Sarah?
All right, so as we've previously talked about on here, and as it always goes in the AHL, this is how this league works. There are a lot more players than you'd think who played in Ontario last season but are not here now. We kind of tend to think of Martin Ferk as the biggest absence because he was a big player on that team. But in looking at their roster from the final playoff appearance last season, 10 of the 18 skaters and one of the goaltenders that played in the final game against the Colorado Eagles are either not currently on the Reign's roster or they're there, but they're hurt. Nogier, Sutter, Hickey, Kachev, Ferk, Willanen all have gone to other teams or leagues. Fagimo and Jared Anderson-Dolan, both up in the NHL currently. Akil Thomas, Jacob Doty, both injured and out for the rest of the season. And that's not even considering players like Gabe Velarde, Quentin Byfield, Alex Turcotte, Rasmus Kupari, Jordan Spence, Jacob Moverari, Sean Dursey. All those guys split time their last season, and with the exception of Velarde, who needs waivers to go down, and Dursey, who's established himself as an NHL defenseman, all those guys are probably going to do it again this season. So that is both a lot of top-end talent and a lot of role players who are gone, and in some cases hadn't really been replaced with similar caliber players or experienced veterans. So that's one thing. But the biggest story coming out of the Reign lately has been goaltending. So Phoenix Copley was brought in as their kind of number 3 veteran kind of guy. I'm a little higher on him than you are, and by a little higher, I mean like a little. I still expect him to turn back into a pumpkin at a moment's notice, but he's up in the NHL and he's performing overall pretty well for the Kings. He's 14-3 for them. His numbers are pretty much where they've always been throughout his career, so just under 3 goals against average, just around 900 in his save percentage, but it's getting the job done and good for him. His last significant NHL action was in 2018 and 19 with the Washington Capitals, so it's a nice story. Cal Peterson was waived in sort of a surprise last-ditch, oh, oops, we don't know what else to do about our $5 million goalie who suddenly sucks. Like, that's what do? You panic, you send him to the AHL. Like, you don't have any other options. The hope was he could go down there, regain his form, but so far it's been kind of mixed results. Retired goaltender, friend of the program, Mike McKenna, did a deep dive into Peterson's issues. You can Google Mike McKenna, Cal Peterson, and you'll get the article. It's really interesting, especially as a non-goaltender, to read how he breaks it down. But basically what he's saying is Cal Peterson needs a complete technical overhaul in his game. You're not going to accomplish that overnight. He doesn't track pucks well. He's not getting square to the puck when he does track it. He's kind of reaches too far forward. He's not taking up as much space in the net as he could be. So he's presenting a very small, very small in the big net. He's behind the play. He's scrambling to get into position. He gets himself into spots he can't recover from and get back into position to stop the next puck. There's a tendency for younger American goaltenders who came up at a certain time to want to emulate vintage Jonathan Quick, but that isn't a good idea. Don't do it. Don't do it. It gives me anxiety. Playing with that lack of control isn't going to help you, especially if you're behind in the play. Jonathan Quick has made it work for him for a little bit, but also he has no hips and his body is falling apart. Don't do it. And McKenna in his article about this sees this as something that Peterson isn't going to just be able to play his way out of. This isn't just like a mental block. This isn't some sort of, just lack of focus. This is the physical mechanics of his game. And I'd agree with that after having watched a lot of Cal Peterson over the years. And that is bad news for both the Kings and the Reign. I took a look at the goals against in the last game that he played. It was a 4-3 loss to Calgary. Game number 1 was a power play goal, but it was one of those weird ones because he didn't have a good seal against the right side of the post, and the player manages to just shove it in under his skate. A, kind of a fluky goal, but B, that shouldn't have been possible. That should not be a thing. Second goal against, he made the initial stop with his body, had no idea where the puck went after that. The puck bounced out to a Wranglers player who basically had a whole empty, half of the net to shoot into. Goal 3, there was lots of traffic in the net, but the rebound from Peterson's first save basically goes directly to Radim Zahorna, who scores. Game 4 was the game-winning goal. Goal 4 was the game-winning goal. It came less than a minute after the Reign tied the game. And this is something we saw a lot with him in Los Angeles, was the Kings need that one last save. The Reign need one last save, and you don't get it. In this play, the Reign couldn't clear the goal. The Reign couldn't clear the zone. The goal was scored on a slap shot. I don't think there was a screen on the play. It looked like he had a pretty clear view of what was happening, and it just sails in past him. Now, I don't want to put this all on him. There's always something, if you rewind the play, there's always something further back that led to the Reign to lose possession and to let the Wranglers get into a scoring position. There's always a board battle or something that could have gone better. But there's not really egregious errors on the part of the skaters, at least in this game that I looked at specifically. There's no turnover right in front of the net. There's no half-hearted back check. So these are things that he should be stopping. And from him, I talked earlier about the body language in Chicago and how it's improving and you're getting a good idea of the guys buying in. the body language I'm seeing from Cal Peterson is not great. And from what I'm hearing, the attitude might not be great either, which doesn't bode well for the situation. When you have a player in that sort of position who gets sent down to the AHL, who's been an NHL regular, you want them to go down and not be a diva about it. And I don't know that that's what we're getting here. So that's not great. Obviously, the Kings want him to get his game back on track. They're paying him a lot of money. They had kind of thought they had their goaltender succession plan wrapped up, but they don't. So while it was shocking, sending him to the AHL to do that in a lower pressure environment, it's the best way to do it. But if he needs to strip his game back down to the fundamentals and fix that and build it back up again, that is going to take time. And that's going to take trial and error. And the Reign are going to lose games because he's trying to fix stuff in the middle of a season. The organization has had success with resurrecting goaltenders' careers. Jack Campbell, that one season Peter Budaj played out of his mind. Martin Jones never looked as good as he did when he was playing with the Kings in the Reign. But that takes commitment from the goaltender to buy into the process. And I don't know where Cal Peterson is on that. It's also bad news for Matt Villalta, who I honestly thought was getting a lot more confidence in him, what I saw from him early in the season. Since Peterson was sent down at the beginning of December, Villalta has only played 6 out of 21 games. Oof. So that stinks for him. That has to be super frustrating for Matt Villalta, who is maybe kind of on the cusp of proving himself like maybe not a guy who's ever going to make the NHL, but at least could have a decent career as an AHL starter. And now he has this dropped on him where he's clearly not the organization's priority because their priority is the guy they're paying $5 million. So it's not a great situation. The Reign are winning games. That's great. But from a holistic franchise perspective, don't like it.
Yeah, that's fair. And I mean, hearing that, hey, you're a goaltender, you're a professional goaltender who's had success at the NHL level, had very good success at the NHL level. We need you to stop doing everything that you're doing and rebuild from scratch is, something I'm imagining not a lot of professional goaltenders are just like, okie dokie.
Yeah. And the thing, like, if you compare him from a couple of seasons ago to what he's doing now, like, it's not that they're like, he's doing things now poorly that he didn't do poorly 2-3 years ago. So like something, this isn't like he has always done it bad and it's just all fallen apart. It's that something has started to happen in his technique that like, it's like his body forgot what it's supposed to do.
Such fickle thing, goaltending. It's why we call it.
It's so magic.
All right, Sarah. But we are not done talking about the Ontario Reign. Because during, their game last night, in between periods, they decided to tweet out this thing. This bizarre AHL logo rankings. Now, like, I understand you're the Reign social media team. The S tier is obviously Ontario. The F tier is obviously San Diego. Like, I know how the game's played. But like, we're gonna ignore those two and look at the choices in the middle here. And that is the basis for our start bench ship. So we're going to choose some of these interesting ones and do start bench ship. Sarah, are you ready?
I am ready. This is such a bad chart.
All right. Start bench ship, the Reign rankings A tier, the Abbotsford Canucks, the Milwaukee Admirals, and the Hershey Bears. Now, this is, again, just strictly on the logo on the screen. Not the jersey, not the uniform, just the logo. Sarah, I will let you kick it off. Who do you start? Who do you bench? Who do you ship?
This one is so easy to me. Start the Abbotsford Canucks. I love that little skating lumberjack man. Just brings me great entertainment. Bench the Bears. I like it. I like a big angry bear. I have nothing against it, but you got to bench one of them. I am shipping the Admirals because I want the cartoon funny Admiral logo back and not this like actual skeleton thing. I want the fun one. Bring it back. Thank you. That is all.
Wow. That is probably the hottest take I've ever heard you have. The whole thing.
I love the cartoon Admirals logo thing. It's so good. It's so minor league hockey.
I'm starting that Admirals logo. That is one of the best logos in the NHL. I have no notes. Like, that perfectly incorporates a lot of really cool elements. I'm benching Hershey simply because it has to go against Milwaukee in this case. Hershey in this case, very good logo. Jersey armpits, no. That logo is good, though. I am shipping the Abbotsford logo to the Vancouver Canucks merchandise store from 2014 as the fashion jerseys, which is where they ripped the entire thing from. This is the laziest logo that I have seen get put out in a long time. Like, the Japanese flag designer is looking at this logo and is like, dude, come on, you can do better than that. Like, this was some especially too, like, he's skating it like a proper way, I guess, but like the bushwhacker arms, it's just not like they had so many opportunities to do something better than this for Abbotsford. And it's kind of like one of those where we heard Abbotsford got the franchise, and then we heard nothing about front office hirings or anything like that until like a month before the season. And it was like, oh yeah, Bim Jennings just got up and was like, oh yeah, we have to do that. Quick, grab something from the closet we can repurpose. All right. Let's move on because I don't want to talk about.
I'm gonna get kicked off the podcast.
Let's go with the C tier Reign rankings here. The Cleveland Monsters, Charlotte Checkers, and Providence Bruins. I'm going to start this one. Charlotte Checkers starting, no question. A great logo. A very good, like, seeing their old ECHL logos with the polar bear. Like, I love the skyline in the background. They incorporated what should still be their NHL affiliate colors well while feeling different enough. I'm going to bench the Cleveland Monsters. Again, a very good logo. The only reason they're getting the bench over Charlotte is because their mascot is a seagull and not a sea monster. I cannot express how stupid it is enough times. But that logo is good. But Charlotte's, I'm giving the edge to. I'm shipping Providence. This is another just like, because Providence isn't owned by Boston. They are an independent team. And yet they're just like, all right, what if we cut off the bottom half of the B? Done. Get out. Like, you could have done so many better things here and just went the path of least work. And that's embarrassing for you guys. I'm almost scared, Sarah. What are you going to say?
No, this time I'm actually 100% with you on these choices. Checkers, love it. Love the skyline, like the simplicity of the colors. They're not trying to do too much. And like with Hershey, I love me a good angry bear. Benching the Monsters, I feel like it could be better. Like it's a little lacking, but it's also it's different. You don't see like half of a creature's like head in many logos. Like it's different. Yeah, the Bruins is like they forgot they had to create a logo, and then the day that they had to send things to like whoever makes their stuff was like, ah, crap. And that's what they did. Like, no, please try harder next time.
It was like when the Binghamton Whalers just turned it on the side. And like,
yes. Done.
It's almost like someone had a picture framed in their office of the logo, and like one of the nails fell out and it just flipped, and they were like,
yeah.
But that's a little bit of effort. That's all we ask. Like, I made our logo here. I put effort into that at least. Like, I put more effort into our stupid farmhouse logo than Providence did or Abbotsford, and that's shameful.
Legit.
All right, third one here. We're going with their E tier. This is just above F here. These were all three in the E tier. The Calgary Wranglers, the Belleville Senators, and the Colorado Eagles. Sarah, kick us off.
All right. We're starting the Eagles. The logo is does what it says on the tin. It's an eagle. It's got some like colors by it. And the Colorado has all the like rainbowy colors in their flag and stuff. Great. Fine. Whatever. Benching the Wranglers. I feel indifferent about it. It could be better, but it's not. Shipping Belleville, much for the same reason as Providence, of you basically took a logo that already exists and changed the letter, and now we're done. Calgary did the same thing, but I like the flame, so that's why Calgary's not getting shipped.
All right.
Am I getting ejected from the podcast?
No, but we disagree about things. I'm starting the Calgary Wranglers. I like this logo a lot. I was concerned they would screw it up because they did a good job of taking the Wranglers logo from a previous. I don't remember what league it was. It wasn't the AHL. It was like, I genuinely don't remember if it was a junior team or something like that. But like I saw their old logo, which was like a cowboy silhouette riding in front of like a stylized block W. And they took that, they put the W in there, they put the flames in it, and they gave it enough of its own spin for it to feel like it's paying homage to the previous, franchise while still being something you could be modern. And so I like that a lot. Is it a great logo? Is it a 10 out of 10? No, but it's way better than E tier. Come on, Ontario. I can't ship both Belleville and Colorado. That is not part of this game. So I'm going to bench Belleville. Strictly, I flipped a coin before the show, and that was how it came out. Both of these are terrible. Belleville, again, this is you exactly as Sarah said. You took one logo, the Ottawa version of this, and you swapped the letter out. But even more on top of that, like Belleville or Ottawa's AHL affiliates had other logos that were different enough that were a little more interesting, a little more fun. And if you would have just stolen those, like that came with the rights package you bought, that would have been fine. No complaints. But this also just looks like something that belongs on like a college, a D3 college that's existed since, before Prohibition. Like it's just a B. And they've never changed it because it's been around for 130 years. Like, that's what this looks like to me. It's not a good logo, even as an Ottawa Senators copy paste job. It's this is just, it's a B. I'm super excited about the B. Like, boo. Colorado, sure. It's a little clip arty, but I just want to point out that like blue, red, and yellow are the state flag colors. Fine. There is no red and yellow on the Colorado uniform anymore, except for this part of the logo and the state flag on their shoulder. So why does the logo still have colors that don't appear in the rest of the uniform? Like, that's fine that it's the state flag colors, but you should have put that in somewhere else. Because now it just looks like 2/3 of the colors on your logo were just kind of, slopped on there and have never been updated.
That's legit.
Eagles are fierce creatures. The Eagles fan page has what I'm just assuming is an endless photo list of Eagles looking badass. Because every game day post or whatever, there's a different one. And you found one that looks pensive. Timid almost. It's an eagle who's that dude at a party on the couch maybe had a little too much and is trying to hide the fact that he's had a little too much. That's what your eagle looks like, as opposed to one that looks like it's going to rip my face off and, fly away with it for 2 calendar days. This is it's not an E tier, but it's like a C. Belleville's an F. Just, again, if me in our dumb podcast put more effort into our stupid farmhouse logo than you did for a $1 million minor league hockey franchise, we have some problems here.
Yeah.
All right. That is everything for Start Bench Ship. Sarah, do you have anything else before we call it?
I love the Milwaukee Skeleton cartoon. No one can take that away from me.
I mean, as a good alternative logo or the logo for your kids club or something like that, I'll give that one to you. The logo they have now is great.
Yeah.
It also fit very well when they got beat out of the playoffs last year, and I turned them into the Michael Jordan meme Sadmirals. That was that it also fit that really well, so I can't complain.
Yeah.
But that's a very good logo.
I think had I not previously been exposed to the funny one that I enjoy, like my opinion would be different. But because I know they have this entertaining one that makes me laugh. Like, if you're new to the show and this is your first time hearing me, many of my decisions are based off of what makes me laugh the most. If not like spite. So, but I get what you're putting down with that one.
I would also like to point out in the B tier, they had Henderson and Laval. And that's a crime.
Laval's just it's just a letter.
It's an R. Your team name is named after Maurice Rocket Richard, so I guess using an actual rocket would be kind of off the point, but it's just an R, whereas Henderson's logo is very good. Like, That's another one that's top of the league good.
Yeah.
And you have them side by side ranked in the same tier.
Painful.
No.
Painful.
Get off my lawn, Ontario. Like, all right. Sarah, I think that's enough. Let's...
That is it. That is it for the show. Go tweet at us with what you think these things should be ranked at, or tweet at me. I don't know. Like, tell me your Milwaukee hot takes. It'll be cool. That is it for today. Thank you so much for watching and or listening to the show. The Calder Farmstead is part of the Full Press Radio Network. You can listen to this and several other great hockey, sports, and sports entertainment programs all at www.fullpresscoverage.com. Just click the podcast drop-down menu in the top right portion of the website and enjoy.
And if you guys are enjoying the Calder Farmstead, please make sure you subscribe to get episodes in a timely fashion. Also, if you are listening on Apple, Spotify, or Amazon, please rate and review the podcast. Or if you're watching on YouTube, like the video, comment what you thought of the episode. Doing these things helps others find the show, and your reviews help us improve it. If you think we're a 3-star show, that's fine. Give us 3 stars. Write why you think we should be better. I'll listen if it's reasonable. I mean, we can't have, podcast guests every week. We can't be, bringing on all the big wigs, but like little things that you'd like us to do better, I will listen. I'm open to criticism, but please do that. You can also follow the show on social media at Calder Farmstead on Twitter and at The Calder Farmstead on Instagram and Facebook. Links to all of that and more can be found on our Linktree page, which is linktr.ee/The Calder Farmstead. Big thanks to Adrian Drake, who made our theme music. You can find him on social media at AD_dysfunction. That's AD_DYSFUNCTION. So we can make music for you. Sarah, where can people find you?
So as always, my name is Sarah Avampato. You can find me representing Full Press Hockey on Twitter at Right Said Sarah. It's WRITE Said Sarah with an H. You can check out my writing over at Full Press Hockey, where I talk about the Ontario Reign, or at Canes Country, where I talk about the Chicago Wolves. Sean, where can people find you at?
I'm Sean O'Brien. You can find me on Twitter at Sean O'Brien81. That's SeanObrien81. I'm also on Instagram at Sean O'Brien_81. My Twitter and Instagram are both personal accounts, as I am incredibly unprofessional, period, end of sentence. My Twitter is mostly hockey things, but some, pop culture, this and that. My Instagram is mostly pictures of my dog. My jersey collection is on there as a little story thing you can click through and see the ridiculous amount of money I've spent on hockey jerseys. I'm going to probably put some kid through college. You can find all of the stats work we talk about on my Tableau. That's the graph, the model, the PDO things, that one that looks like this. You can find all of that on my Tableau page. Easiest way to find that is at bit.ly/data-dump-and-chase. All lowercase, all one word. That is it. Thank you once again for tuning into the show. For Sarah Avampato, I am Sean O'Brien, and please dump and chase responsibly.